In this example, we want to factor 9r squared plus 48ru plus 64u squared. The first step in factoring any polynomial is to look for a greatest common factor. When we look at the first term, it is 9r squared, and the last term is 64u squared. Recognizing that the first term has r factors but no u's, and the last term has u's but no r's, we can eliminate any variable being a common factor. Then looking at the coefficients. The factors of 9 are 1, 3, and 9, but none of those factors divide into 64. So since nothing is common between the 9r squared and the 64u squared, other than 1, our greatest common factor is 1. The next step is to then recognize we are dealing with a trinomial. Since this is a 9r squared, we have two options. One option is to try to approach it to using the AC method. A times c in this case would be 9 times 64. 9 times 64 is 576. If we wanted to use this approach, we would need to find a factor pair of 576, which also added to make 48. Personally, I would rather use another option, and another option begins like this. We recognize that 9r squared is the same thing as 3r quantity squared, and 64u squared is the same thing as 8u quantity squared, because both the 9 and the 64 are perfect squares, and so are the r squared and the u squared. If we're able to apply this shortcut, this perfect square trinomial shortcut, we need to confirm that the middle term will actually fit the pattern. So the middle term would have to be 2 times the 3r in the front parentheses times the 8u in the back parentheses. Well, 2 times 3 is 6, 6 times 8 is 48, so that checks, and r times u is ru. So this does in fact fit the perfect square trinomial pattern. So the way this will factor is it'll factor into a binomial being squared. The front term in the binomial will be 3r, which came from the 9r squared. The back term will be 8u, which is based on the 64u squared. Because the sign on the middle term in the trinomial was a positive, it tells us that the middle sign in the factored version will also be positive. So the factored version of 9r squared plus 48ru plus 64u squared is 3r plus 8u quantity squared.